Hi, how are you? I'm here with Vincent Finnegan from IrishRacing.com. How are you, Vincent?
I'm good, thanks, Gavin. Yeah,
Good.
all well.
Good. We got chatting the other day on the phone, and Vincent told me some great stories over the years. So I said, you know what, I must come down and have a chat with you and an interview. So you're in this racing game a long time, Vincent.
All my life, more or less, yeah. Third generation in it, would you believe? Yeah.
Really?
I had a grandfather who, now there's a story I didn't tell you before. I had a grandfather who used to, before SIS, there was a company called Xtel, used to provide all the betting information into the shops and results. And
that was your granddad?
No, what my granddad did was he realised that there was no one in Ireland doing that.
Okay.
So every pub in Dublin at the time, every pub in Dublin had its own bookie. He used to sit up on the corner and take bets, but the problem was he couldn't pay out till the next day because he didn't know the results. So they'd pay out when they got the paper the next morning.
Right.
And so you get paid a day after. So he realised he became a subscriber to Xtel in London. He was their only subscriber in Ireland, and he got all the results relayed into him on the blower system.
Brilliant.
He had a team of people then who would photocopy out the results, hand them to guys on bicycles, and they'd go around all the pubs in Dublin handing in the result of the race so the lads could get paid out and drink on to the next race.
So he was an entrepreneur.
This is it. He ended up having 3 offices in Ireland. He was the only 3 subscribers. In the end, he'd won in Cork, Belfast and Dublin. And then in the end, they realised, hang on a minute here, how come you're the only customer we have in Ireland? So they ended up taking him on. He ran it then. For the rest of his time in business. He ran Xtel for them in Dublin, and it did an office in Fleet Street, and then my father worked for them as well all his life, and then I got involved later on in different things. But
how many years are you in racing now?
I'm in racing since I'm probably, what am I in it? Go to 40 years now altogether. Man and boy. You
started when you were 10.
There you go, yeah. And so I was about 30 years then with the Irish Times before I left them 2 years ago with IrishRacing.com. We both left on the same day.
And we'll come back to that in a minute. And tell me this, you also used to do the starting prices yourself and your brother Paul, is that right?
Yeah, once upon a time. Well, what happened was we both worked for the Irish Times, a subsidiary called Irish Racing Services, which provided news content, race cards, results to all the newspapers.
Okay.
A media agency is what it was. We worked in that for a number of years. One of the aspects of that was we also returned the starting prices of the races, but we did lots of things, comments and running for Racing Post. We would have supplied the Indo, the Press, the Examiner, all those, and the Times, of course, with reports from the races, mainly on days when they wouldn't have their own journalists going. So all the gaff tracks around the country, we went up and down there,
so you were
night and day.
Doing all the roads around Ireland?
Everywhere, yeah. Know them backwards. Every shortcut in Ireland we knew at one stage, yeah.
When I used to go racing a lot as a young lad with my dad, and I definitely remember seeing yourself and Paul doing down the betting ring and with your
hail, rain and snow. We did it all, for many years.
With your little boards and all that, yeah. So, and then IrishRacing.com, that was owned by the Irish Times for a long time. And then
that came out of Irish Racing Services, which was the business we had. We were involved for years in supplying other people with data. So then it was decided with the Irish Times they had started to get into the internet. This is 25 years ago now, this year actually.
Really?
So they decided to push some of our data from Irish Racing Services onto the internet as IrishRacing.com.
Why not have it in the open?
Private up there. So it just sat as a back burner really to the rest of the business. But what ended up happening was about 10 years ago, that business, Irish Racing Services, was on the decline. The basic reason was newspapers like The Independent, The Examiner and all the rest of them, and the Times themselves, they wanted to get a package of sports information rather than taking horse racing from one provider, soccer from another, rugby from someone else, and cricket from someone else. Companies like Press Association were amalgamating all that into one package so they get a feed of them for everything. So Irish Racing Services couldn't compete against the bigger ones who could supply all the different sports. So we ended up selling that business to Press Association. So all the staff that were working with me, they all moved over to Press Association, still working for them in Ireland now on horse racing. And I stayed with the Irish Times to run IrishRacing.com. So.
And then you were saying that I suppose IrishRacing.com, it's got a huge expense because of the data, and then it was struggling to make ends meet on its own.
Yeah, struggling to make ends meet. The Irish Times didn't really see it as a core product within their business. Obviously, they're into pure news as such as the way they looked at their business, and they saw that as being where they wanted to focus on. They weren't really into horse racing, and not particularly IrishRacing.com, because the only way you can actually make money out of this stuff is through gambling advertising, which they wouldn't see as something pure to their core values. So they ended up deciding anyway, after a number of years where they'd left me just left me up to my own devices largely without a huge
So you were
amount of
running
support.
basically on your own?
Yeah, on my own for nearly 10 years.
Really?
Yeah. And the site was licking its face for a while. Then it was beginning to lose some money. One of the issues, look, no point going into all of the detail, but one of the things was we used to have Google ads on the site, which would be a good earner. Just, the standard thing, you go on, you see a Google ad saying book a hotel, buy a pair of shoes, whatever. Google decided overnight, no, that's a gambling related website, even though gambling doesn't take place on the website. Someone in Google's headquarters decided that no, that's a gambling website. So they turned that off overnight. So that was, we used to get about $4 or $5 grand a month in Google advertising revenue.
Yes.
So all of a sudden that's gone. So how do you replace that is the issue. I had no advertising team, I had no sales team. So it was very difficult to try and bring that back in. So after a couple of years of us struggling on, the Irish Times decided, look, it's not a core product. We're going to close the website. And they looked at, initially they were talking for a while anyway about redeploying me within the group. But I only wanted horse racing. It's all I'd really know. So I said, look, I'm not too keen on that. So we did another option was they had a voluntary redundancy scheme. So I took the redundancy, and as a part of that, they gave me the site.
How much did you pay for the site?
I paid a lot of money for the site. I paid €1 for it. Yeah, but at the same time, like it sounds like
I know
you got it for nothing. But this thing is losing so much money.
If it's losing money, well then that's all it's worth.
So the only one who had a passion to keep it alive was me. So I tried to find someone else. So fortunately, I hadn't got a whole lot of time here, because 1 month of that was going to cost me about 15 grand in revenue to keep the thing running, and that's just for the data feeds. That's nothing else. So on that alone, I couldn't afford
serious money.
Yeah, your redundancy wouldn't last you long if you start doing that. So I needed to find someone rapidly. So fortunately, I found a company called Better Collective, a Danish company that's involved in this, in media sites. They're rapidly expanding. They took over irishracing.com 2 years ago, and I continue to work for them now, which is great for me. So that was the best part of it, I suppose. They're letting me, with a team of their own people, develop the site, and it's a slow process at the minute. A lot of things have happened in the background which most users of the site wouldn't be aware of, or most people using the internet wouldn't be aware of. But a lot of the stuff they've done is around search engine optimization, so that if you go into Google and you search horse racing, we weren't coming up. If you search Irish horse racing or irishracing.com, yes, we'd come up, but we're now starting to rise the rankings in lots of the other search terms, so we can start to compete with our competitors, who there's plenty of. And then the other side of this is, even for Google, things like the way the site is set up, the way the pages are laid out, all that sort of stuff, site maps and everything else, all had to be built and modernized into the backend, because we were just doing it piecemeal. We're going to add in a new feature or whatever. We'll just throw it on, tag it onto the other one. So it was like a little house that started off as a 2-bedroom semi, and it's now a 9-bedroom sprawling mansion, but it's sticky tape and nails and whatever holding it together. So it needed to be redeveloped, re-put back in a proper way and a proper structure, and that's what they've been doing for the last 15 months. There's still some of that progress going on before we get to the next development stage, which is to start looking at the content.
Great plans for it.
Great plans. Like it's it.
You're saying they've 900 staff all over the world, is that right?
Yeah, for a company, they're only 18 years in our going. 2 Danish guys started it on their holidays in college one year. They were interrailing, ran out of money, and started a little business. And from that was the kernel of it starting. Now they're in 18 countries. They've got over 900 staff, and they're booming. Probably going a little bit too quick in some instances, because we're struggling with developers and lots of other things, because they've got so many sites at this stage. They've over 240 sites they're involved in. So great plans. So you're the man that saved irishracing.com. Only for you, the site would have been closed down. Well, possibly. Yeah. Well, it was looking that way for certainly for a few weeks till we found a way out, is the bottom line. So.
I've used irishracing.com for years and years. Now I do use the Racing Post. I do use At the Races, Racing TV, and I use irishracing.com. I find it very, very good. The only thing missing, I suppose, is videos on it. But apart from that, it's very, very deep, all the coverage that it gives you. You were even showing me in the last few days that there's features I never realised that it had. And at the end of this video, we might show a video explaining the few features. That it's just for people to realise how to maximise the site. The site's free, and if you get to use all these features, you can't do you any harm.
No, that's the first thing. Look, there's lots of sites out there to do with horse racing. Different people will find different aspects of things they like, don't like in each one. You'll probably find something you don't like on irishracing.com. But the first thing to take into account is it's 100% free. That's the first thing. Everything's there. We don't limit you in any way. You can see all the data going back. We've got horse racing data on the site going back to 1990 that we display. Now, we have some a little bit further back, but basically 1990. So you're talking 32 years worth of data there that you can access freely from your phone as well, whereas a lot of the others have apps for the phone. Ours, we don't have an app at the minute. We may have one for some elements going forward. But the bottom line is we don't have an app. The reason we had an app a few years ago, some of your viewers may have had our apps in the past for Android or iPhone, but the problem for us was we used a third party to build them. When you have a third party build your app and you need to change something, a simple example would be the horse racing here. They used to have a short head was the smallest distance. They changed it to a nose. We need to add a nose in as an extra distance. We have to go back to the company because they held the source code for the app. So you've got to go back to them every time. A ticketing system. So you're left waiting a month for them to fix it. So we said,
Complicated.
Complicated. And horse racing is constantly evolving with different things, different distances, different names of races, all sorts of different things going on. A new track opens or whatever it is. You need to update your app again. And we found it too difficult, too expensive. So we've gone the other way, put the whole site on the phone. And if you're phone savvy or you know someone who is, you can make a shortcut. When you open the site on your browser, you can make a shortcut and it works exactly like an app. You'll have a little irishracing.com symbol on your phone and you just tap that rather than having to go in and search for it on your phone. But I think it's a great site. I love it, obviously, because I've been developing it for the last 25 years. So I'll sing its praises. But I do think if you're someone who's into horse racing, particularly the form side of it, and you like to study form, I don't think you'll find a better place.
Yeah, you were showing me the other day, which I didn't realise, and I'm using the site a long time along with the other sites, that you can bring it right down to ground distance track.
You can filter all the way down. This is only on desktop now, that particular feature at the moment. We're hoping to try and bring that into mobile in the next phase of development for the site. But at the minute, if you've got a desktop computer, you go into it and you'll see on the top left corner in a race card, for example, you'll see a little box, a filter box. You tap on that. It changes the whole view of the race.
And we'll show a little video of this at the end.
Yeah,
showing that example.
And you'll be able to go through it. So you can filter between all sorts of features. You can filter between the going, which is one of the main key elements. Yeah, you can do distance as well. You can do whether it's a flat race, a jump race, a point to point, or whatever it may be that you want to see. So say a horse is in a chase, you would include chase form plus point to point because they've obviously jumped before, so you can see that straight away. On it, we show every horse's timeline in a graph where there's little lollipop sticks that show whether they were first, second, third, or fourth. And what you can see is on the timeline, you can see, yes, he's jumped fences before, but it's 3 years ago and so on. So you've got to take all those things into account. That's all part of the fun of trying to analyze a race, trying to work out what might win it. So that's the features I love on it. There's lots more. You can do the draw analysis as well, which is a separate button on a race card. You can hit draw analysis. It shows you the draw analysis for that particular race course, and you can see it by profit and loss, expected versus reality, and everything else of what happens. So if you say there's a race, 10 runners, and you see stall 5, how is stall 5 done at Navan over 5 furlongs or whatever, and you can see straight away out of a sample of maybe 300, we expected there to be 28 winners out of stall 5, but there's in fact been 38, and so on. So you can start.
You were even showing me the other day that stall 12, 13, 14 or whatever in Bellewstown actually has produced a profit over the years. So
yeah, there's some amazing things in it, and we were talking about this off air before we were recording this. That what's interesting is you see a particular track which would have a stall bias towards, say, a low numbers or whatever.
Yeah, even Dundalk, say, for example.
Exactly, yeah. But it may turn out that you're actually better off punting the high numbers because the bookmakers take that into account. They're much bigger prices, particularly as we talked about on the exchanges.
And the exchanges, some of the wide draws can drift out to huge prices.
Yeah, because people think, oh no, you've no chance from there. But because they're such a big price, you only need one in every so many to win and you'll show a profit and so on.
Correct, yeah.
There's an interesting thing there. We did a lot of analysis on this a few years ago. If you take certain data and stats, so one of the things we took into account did it for all sorts of tracks and all sorts of different things, but one that's amazing. This is something that's hard to believe, right? If you take a track like Cork, which used to be called Mallow, right?
Yeah.
2 mile maiden hurdle in Cork, right? Mm-hmm. If it's on, this is looking at the chance the favourite has to win. Standard thing across all races, taking everything, handicaps, maidens, everything into account, it's about 40% or something of favourites win. If it's a maiden hurdle in Cork, it's about 60-70%, right? If it's a maiden hurdle on soft ground in Cork, it rises to about 80%. If it's a maiden hurdle on soft ground in Cork over 2 miles and the horse is a previous course winner, as in it won a bumper in Cork, it rises to something like nearly 90%, which is astonishing, isn't it? Now, some of them will be very short prices, but at the same time, if you're looking for a winner, that's the sort of thing that you can find.
Yeah, well, some of these betting companies nowadays are using all that information. So I suppose as punters, if we want to compete without being a betting company, we have to try and delve as deep as we can.
Yeah, and that's the problem with it. And in the old days, you talk about the internet, the way it's gone now with all the different websites. But when I started going racing, you needed form books, and people would arrive to the race course with a form book, and you'd end up with 5 and 6 fingers in different pages trying to look at related form between horses. Now the internet can do that for you, and on irishracing.com we try to do that as best we can with the filters you can get, so you can see all of that information and filter it down to get to whatever you think is the relevant information. It may not be what someone else thinks. That's the bottom line. And sometimes you have to think outside the box.
Yeah, we're all different opinions.
Yeah, and to try and get some value in it, everyone has to try and look for their little edge somewhere. And it may be maiden hurdles in Cork on soft ground, but it could be handicaps in Ballinrobe or somewhere, or whatever it may be. It could be something that you found a little edge somewhere yourself.
The edge is there somewhere, yeah.
And absolutely. And like, as much as the big firms do all their data and everything else, I found, I'm sure you see this too, you take a Friday, particularly when you've got a lot of racing on over the weekend, you start seeing how they price up the races. They generally price them up the night before and so on. That you get something like, if you've got 2 meetings on in Ireland, 6 or 7 in England on a Saturday, the last meeting in Ireland, whatever that is, the secondary meeting, you'll find value in some of them. They price them to a fair over round percentage, but they'll miss something. If you study them well enough, you'll find something in there as a bit of value. You may not get a whole lot of money on, but at the same time, that's the sort of places you'll find the value, rather than looking at the Group 1 in Ascot, which everybody knows everything about it. They've been betting anti-post on it for 6 weeks in advance. There's not a lot of edge in there for you, but there might be in, as I say, a handicap in Ballinrobe or somewhere. It might be the place you'll find the edge, but everyone to their own.
And one thing as well is make sure if you get a chance, read Vincent's blog. Is it weekly?
Weekly on a Monday.
And this man definitely holds no punches, let me tell you. He shoots from the hip. Vincent, lovely to talk to you.
Thanks,
your knowledge and enthusiasm it comes across big time. So well done on savingirishracing.com.
And the best of luck to you and your new website as well.
Thank you.
Hope it goes well for you.
Thanks. Yeah. And good luck with irishracing.com. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Cheers, Vincent. Thank you.
Hi, here's the demo of what Vincent Finnegan from irishracing.com was talking about. There's some extra filters which I never realised were there. So, for example, we're in a card here. Today is Wednesday, the 5th of October. I'm in the 225, as you can see here in Navan, which is a 5 furlong 164 yards handicap. So if you click this green button here, this green square, that gives you some filters to choose from. So just let's go down here and show you, for example. So here's all their runs. If you've got a red lollipop, it's a win. If you have a green lollipop, it's placed, and blue means you're unplaced. But here you can go and check how the horse has done on heavy, say for example, soft to heavy and soft. The ground today in Navan was very soft. So for example, here's Conversant, and on those 3 grounds, which is heavy, soft to heavy and soft, here's his performances. Before today, he'd 4 wins, and he actually won the race today to make it 5. He also had a couple of places there in the green. You can also overlap that with the type of race, whether it's a maiden or it's a handicap, etc., the distance of the race. You can choose the course. So, for example, if I choose Navan only, today is the red lollipop because he's just won, and he is the only horse. If I scroll up and down here, there's nobody else in that race that had a red lollipop, as in no other horse in the race had won at Navan previously. So you can not only check right-handed, left-handed, course, distance, type and going, but you can actually overlap them as well, which is just a very, very handy tool, and it's just to make you aware of it. And there it is there. When you go into cards, it's this green box here.